They say curiosity killed the cat, but in my case, it nearly killed me. I never thought anything like this would happen to me. I was just a regular guy who got too close to something I should have left alone. Let me take you back to the night everything changed. I spent most of my nights alone in my dimly lit apartment, navigating the murky depths of the dark web. My friends often warned me about the dangers out there, but I shrugged it off. I was a digital explorer, and I loved the thrill of uncovering the forbidden. That night, I stumbled upon a YouTube channel that sent a chill down my spine. The host, a gaunt figure named Max Vale, had this unsettling charisma. His hollow eyes seemed to pierce through the screen as he spun dark tales that left me shaken. I couldn't look away. Each video was creepier than the last, but one in particular caught my attention. The final cut. The thumbnail showed a bloodied knife in a dark alleyway I recognized from a local news report. As I clicked play, my heart raced. Max recounted the story of a serial killer whose identity had eluded authorities for years. The details were horrifying, and I felt a chill run down my spine. When he described the very alley I had walked through just a week prior, then came the chilling invitation. Find me, if you dare. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to know more. Days passed, and I became obsessed. I scoured the comments, looking for clues, and that's when I found a user named **Echo Hunter. They posted coordinates to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. My heart raced. Was this the killer's lair? I knew it was dangerous, but the thrill was too enticing. So, that night, armed with nothing but a flashlight and a shaky resolve, I drove to the coordinates. The air was thick with an unnatural silence as I approached the dilapidated building, the moonlight barely cutting through the dense clouds. Inside, the warehouse was a graveyard of broken machinery and forgotten memories. Suddenly, I heard a scuttling sound in the dark. My heart pounded as I crept deeper into the shadows. In the far corner, something glinted, a reflection of light. As I drew closer, I froze. There, strewn across a dusty table, were photographs of victims, their eyes wide with terror. But what made my blood run cold was a photograph of meat came from a distance, capturing me mid-laugh at a coffee shop just days before. Panic surged through me. How did Max know who I was? That's when I heard a chilling laugh echoing through the warehouse. Max stepped out from the darkness, his eyes gleaming with madness. "You shouldn't have come here, Alex," he sneered, a twisted smile stretching across his face. "You think you're clever, piecing together the clues, but you've only scratched the surface." Before I could respond, the lights flickered on, revealing the horrific scene around me. Tables were littered with grim tools and more photographs, each one depicting people who had stumbled too close to the truth. I could see the glint of a knife in Max's hand, and a deep sense of dread washed over me. ... You see, I don't just tell stories. I live them. And now you're part of my narrative, he hissed. Desperation clawed at me as I turned to flee, but the warehouse doors slammed shut with a deafening thud. My heart raced as I dashed toward a window, praying for escape. But as I reached it, I stumbled upon another horrifying revelation, more photos. And in each one, I saw myself, documented in real time. How was this possible? Each image captured mundane moments. Walking home, working at the cafe, even sleeping. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The killer wasn't just a stranger. He had been watching me, a ghost in the digital shadows, documenting my life for his own twisted thrill. "You were never meant to be here, but now you are," Max said, his voice echoing in the warehouse. "And you are perfect for my final act." Fueled by sheer adrenaline, I grabbed a heavy pipe from the ground and swung it wildly. Max sidestepped, laughing like a maniac. But in that chaos, I knew I was fighting against the twisted narrative being crafted around me. "Your story doesn't end here," he shouted, eyes wild with excitement. "You will be my masterpiece." With a surge of panic, I burst through the warehouse door, flinging it open. The night air hit me like a wave, and I ran, not looking back. I sprinted down the darkened street, heart racing, mind racing even faster. Days turned into weeks. I managed to evade Max, but the psychological scars remained. Every shadow felt threatening, every creak in my apartment echoing with his twisted laugh. Then one evening, as I sat in front of my computer, the familiar chill crept back. An alert popped up. A new video from Nightmare Echoes. Against my better judgment, I clicked it. The screen flickered to life, and I was met with a chilling, Seitan, unblinking camera focused on my empty apartment. Max leaned into the frame, grinning with that same maniacal glee. "Welcome back, Alex. The next chapter has just begun." In that moment, I realized that Truth the Killer had never stopped watching. The story wasn't just mine anymore. It was a living nightmare unfolding right before my eyes. And I was both the hunted and the unwilling author of a tale that would never end. I've always been fascinated by the dark web. As a freelance journalist, I was no stranger to the bizarre and unsettling. But what I found that night changed everything. It started with a simple search for the strange and macabre items that seemed to defy the ordinary. Little did I know, I was about to plunge into a nightmare. It was a rainy Tuesday evening when I found the website. The layout was crude, almost like a relic from the early internet. A title flashed across the screen: Curiosities of the Forgotten. I clicked, the rush of adrenaline already surging through me. I scrolled through listings for everything from haunted dolls to cursed artifacts. Each item came with chilling backstories that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Then I saw it. A small, ornate box, its surface intricately carved with symbols I didn't recognize. The listing read, "The box of lost whispers here, the secrets of the dead." My heart raced as I read the description. For a modest price, the seller promised a communication with the spirits of those who had passed. It sounded absurd, but my curiosity was piqued. I'd always been skeptical about the supernatural, but something about this box tugged at me. I imagined the stories I could write, the fame I could achieve if I could capture something truly extraordinary. Without thinking it through, I placed the order. When the package arrived a week later, my excitement morphed into unease. The box was even more beautiful in person, and I felt an odd pull to it. I set it on my desk, the rain pattering against the window as the shadows in my apartment deepened. That night, I sat alone in my dimly lit living room, the box staring back at me. I opened it cautiously, revealing a collection of strange objects: a small mirror, a twisted piece of metal, and an old, yellowed piece of parchment with words scrawled in a shaky hand. The parchment warned that the box held secrets, but they came at a cost. The spirits were restless, and they demanded a sacrifice. I laughed nervously. "Great, just what I need," I muttered to myself. Still, a part of me felt intrigued. I grabbed the mirror, half expecting nothing to happen. But as I gazed into its depths, the reflection shifted. I saw a flicker of movement behind me, a shadow flitting across the room. I spun around, but there was nothing. Just my empty apartment, the sound of rain filling the silence. I shook my head, convincing myself I was just imagining things. But deep down, a seed of fear was planted. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The shadows seemed to dance around me, and I began to hear whispers in the night, soft, unintelligible murmurs that clawed at my sanity. I tried to dismiss them as the wind, but it felt too deliberate, too focused. One evening, as I sat down to write, I felt an ice-cold breeze wash over me. The box sat open, and the mirror caught the light just right, reflecting something that shouldn't have been there. I leaned in, and the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices overlapping, begging to be heard. My heart raced as I realized I could make out a few words. Help us. Trapped. Find. I slammed the box shut, heart pounding. This is ridiculous, I told myself. It's just a trick of the mind. But as I tried to push the incident from my mind, a chilling thought crept in. What if there was something to it? Determined to investigate, I spent hours scouring the internet for information on the box and its origins. The more I learned, the more I regretted my decision. Stories of people going mad after using the box filled the forums. Others claimed to have seen figures lurking in the shadows of their homes, whispering and begging for release. The warnings were dire. Once you opened the box, you were marked. Panic clawed at my throat. I had to get rid of it. But as I went to close the website, I received a message. It was from an anonymous user with a cryptic username, Seeker of Truth. The message read, "You must make the choice. The box demands a sacrifice." I was shaking. "What do you mean?" I typed back, but my response was met with silence. I decided it was time to return the box, to cleanse myself of whatever curse it had placed on me. That night, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. I tried to drown them out with music, but the voices twisted through the notes, merging with a rhythm until they became one haunting melody. I felt paralyzed, unable to move, as a deep sense of dread enveloped me. Suddenly, the box flew open, and the mirror shattered. I gasped, flinching as shards scattered across my floor, reflecting the dim light in 1,000 different directions. From the broken glass, a figure emerged, a swirling shadow with hollow eyes, reaching for me. ... Release us, it whispered, the sound chilling my bones. In a panic, I stumbled backward, knocking over my chair. I grabbed the box and dashed for the door, desperate to escape. But the shadow followed, its whispers growing louder, more frantic. You can't run, you have to choose. With a surge of adrenaline, I sprinted down the hall and out of my apartment, clutching the box tightly. I had to find a way to end this. As I raced toward the street, I heard a voice call out from behind me. "Jake, stop!" It was Sarah, my neighbor, concern etched across her face. "What's wrong?" I skidded to a halt, the box trembling in my grip. I can't explain right now. You need to get away from me," I shouted, panic overwhelming me. But she stepped closer, a determined look in her eyes. "I can help you. Please, just tell me what's going on." Before I could respond, the shadows around me thickened. I felt the box vibrate in my hands, the whispers turning into a chorus of anguished cries. I was losing control. "Please, you don't understand," I cried, but it was too late. The darkness enveloped us both, a swirling mass of despair and longing. I could feel the weight of countless souls pressing in on us, their sorrow palpable. In that moment, a horrifying realization struck me. The box was never just an artifact. It was a trap away to collect souls. The sacrifices were not merely lives taken, but lives consumed. I had unwittingly become a player in a much larger game, one that demanded the ultimate price. "Jake!" Sarah screamed, grasping my arm. "We need to get rid of it, now!" With a surge of desperation, I made a choice. "You're right. We can't let this continue." I turned and hurled the box into the street, watching as it shattered against the pavement. The moment it broke, a deafening silence fell over us, and the shadows receded. But the relief was short-lived. As I looked back, I saw the ghostly figures emerging from the remnants of the box, their faces twisted in rage and sorrow. They swirled around us, their whispers now desperate screams. "Why did you free us?" they wailed, their voices intertwining in a haunting symphony. "No," I shouted, stumbling backward, fear coursing through me. "We wanted to help you, but it was too late." In a flash, the shadows lunged at us, and everything went dark. When I awoke, I was alone on the sidewalk, the night air heavy and still. My heart raced as I scrambled to my feet. The box was gone, but the whispers lingered in the air, echoing in my mind. I looked around, trying to make sense of what had happened. My apartment was still there, but I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. I stumbled back inside, the silence deafening, the weight of my actions pressed down on me. But then, I noticed something on my desk, a small shard of glass from the mirror, glinting ominously in the dim light. It felt familiar, almost alive. I reached for it, and in that moment, the whispers returned, clearer this time. "Jake, you can't escape. We are always with you." Panic surged as I dropped the shard, but it was too late. I had opened the door, and the shadows had followed. The game wasn't over. I was still trapped, still marked, and now I had become part of their twisted reality. As the shadows closed in around me, I understood the truth. The darkness wasn't just a thing outside. It was inside me, and it would never let go. I'm Jake, a dark web explorer, always chasing the next thrill. I know what you're thinking. It's dangerous, reckless, even. But the rush of finding something forbidden is what keeps me going. It all started one fateful night when I stumbled upon a forum titled The Final Game. I should have known better, but curiosity got the best of me. ... The forum was buzzing with activity, threads filled with cryptic messages and ominous challenges. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. Participants posted about their experiences, some expressing excitement, others fear. But what caught my attention was a pinned post from a user named Asterisk the Game Master. It promised a prize so valuable it would change your life forever. All you had to do was survive the game. I felt a mix of thrill and dread. I clicked to read more. The rules were simple. Players had to eliminate each other until only one remained. The last survivor would receive the ultimate reward of promise of unimaginable wealth, freedom, or so the post claimed. The catch: if you tried to run or expose the game, there would be dire consequences. The first thought that crossed my mind was, this has to be a joke. But deep down, a twisted part of me was intrigued. I registered as a participant, fully aware of the risks, but eager to prove myself. After all, how many people get a chance like this? Days passed, and the atmosphere around the forum changed. Players shared their locations and strategies, but the mood shifted from excitement to paranoia. It was hard to tell who was serious and who was just trying to intimidate. I started to receive direct messages from other players, some offering alliances, others threatening me if I didn't back off. One night, I received a message from someone who went by the name **Shadow. **. They seemed friendly at first, sharing tips about how to stay safe. I cautiously agreed to meet them in a public place. The location was a coffee shop near my apartment, enough people around to feel secure. When I arrived, I saw a figure sitting in the corner, wearing a hoodie that obscured their face. I approached cautiously. "Shadow?" I asked. The figure looked up, and my stomach dropped. It was a girl, maybe in her early 20s, with wide, terrified eyes. "You shouldn't be here, Jake," she whispered urgently. "This isn't what you think." "What do you mean?" I asked, anxiety gnawing at me. "They're not just playing a game, they're serious. If you don't kill someone, they'll come for you." Panic surged through me. "What happens if I refuse?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They'll kill your family." A chill ran down my spine. I thought of my younger sister, Emma, living alone just a few blocks away. I had to protect her. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Get out. Drop out of the game. Just leave. They can't touch you if you're not a player." That was the moment I knew I was in over my head. I rushed home, heart pounding. I logged onto the forum, ready to withdraw from the game. But the moment I clicked leave, a message popped up. "There's no turning back. You're in until the end." My heart sank. I was trapped. The next day, I started receiving anonymous messages, taunting me with threats about Emma. They knew everything: where she worked, her daily routine. I felt sick, knowing I had put her in danger. Days turned into a nightmare. Players began disappearing one by one. I heard whispers about gruesome murders, and the posts became increasingly graphic. Every time I logged on, I felt eyes watching me. It was like being in a horror movie, only I was the star, and I couldn't escape my role. Then, I got a message from Shadow again. "We need to talk. Meet me where we first met." Against my better judgment, I agreed. I felt I had no other choice. When I arrived, the coffee shop was nearly empty. I spotted Shadow in the same corner, looking even more anxious than before. "I have a plan," she said, glancing around nervously. "I think we can get out of this together. We can find the game master and put an end to this." "Do you really think we can?" I asked, doubt creeping in. "It's the only option we have," she insisted, her voice trembling. "We can't let them control us." As we discussed our strategy, I noticed a figure in the reflection of the window, a man in a dark coat, watching us. My heart raced. "We need to go, now," I said, grabbing her arm. We darted out of the cafe, but the man followed us. Panic surged as we ran through the streets. We ducked into an alley, hearts pounding, and pressed ourselves against the cold brick wall. "What do we do?" I gasped. "I don't know. Just keep moving," she replied, glancing back. We ran until our lungs burned, weaving through back streets, trying to lose him. I could hear footsteps behind us, growing closer. Just as we turned a corner, I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Jake!" Shadow shouted, pulling me back. I turned to see a group of players, eyes wild with fear. "They're here! We have to stick together." In a frantic scramble, we huddled together, Realizing we were not alone in this madness, the group decided to fight back, uniting against our common enemy. We formed a plan to confront the Game Master, hoping to end the twisted game once and for all. We gathered at a location listed on the Farama, supposedly abandoned warehouse rumored to be the Game Master's hideout. As we approached, the air was thick with tension. Shadows danced in the moonlight, and the structure loomed ominously. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The walls were lined with photographs of players, their faces twisted in agony. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I realized the depth of the horror we were facing. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the warehouse. "Welcome, players. You've all made it this far, but the game isn't over yet." The Game Master stepped into view, a smirk on his face. "Only one of you can survive. Choose wisely." I felt a surge of anger. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. "Because it's a game, Jake. A beautiful game where only the strongest survive. And the prize. The prize is your loved one's freedom from fear. A chance to live without looking over your shoulder." A cold realization hit me. "You're lying. You want us to kill each other. Ah, but you see, the last survivor will not just win for themselves. They'll win the lives of their loved ones, kept safe from harm. It's a game of sacrifice. You kill, or you risk losing everything." As he spoke, I could see Shadow's eyes widen in horror. She turned to me, panic etched on her face. "We can't let him control us. We need to fight back." Fueled by rage, we charged at the Game Master, but he was quicker, stepping aside with a chilling laugh. "You think you can escape? This is only the beginning." Chaos erupted as players turned on each other. The air was filled with screams and the sound of violence. In the turmoil, I lost sight of Shadow, panic clawing at my chest. I ducked behind a pillar, trying to catch my breath. I had to find her. I had to escape. That's when I saw it, a glimmering object on the floor. It was a knife, still stained from the earlier chaos. I picked it up, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Suddenly, I heard a scream. I turned to see Shadow cornered by another player. "Let her go," I yelled, rushing toward them. In a split-second decision, I charged at the player, knife raised. It all happened so fast, could barely process it. But before I knew it, I had plunged the knife into their side. They collapsed, eyes wide in shock, and I felt the weight of what I had done settle heavily on my shoulders. "Jake!" Shadow cried, running to me. "We need to go now." We dashed toward the exit, but the Game Master blocked our path. "You think you can run? The game has just begun." In that moment, I realized that the prize was not just survival. It was a chance to protect those we loved. I had to confront him. "You're sick. You think this is a game, but it's people's lives." The Game Master laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the warehouse. "And what will you do about it? You've already crossed the line." Sheto stood beside me, determination in her eyes. "We're not afraid of you anymore. We'll expose this game. We'll fight back together." As we charged at him, the warehouse erupted into chaos. In that moment, I understood the true power of unity. We weren't just players. We were survivors, willing to fight for each other. In a final act of desperation, we overwhelmed the Game Master, pinning him down. The moment felt surreal, like the climax of a twisted film. As we held him down, he snarled, "You think this ends here? There will always be another game. But we didn't care. We'd escaped his grasp. We'd broken the cycle. In the aftermath, we managed to break free, and the game had ended. It was final over. We survived this nightmare, or so we thought.